I was supposed to die at 38. The doctors didn't say it outright, but I could see it in their eyes. The tumors had spread like spiderwebs across my liver. They gave me timelines wrapped in soft words, palliative, comfort, making the most of your time. I wasn't ready. I was only 35, no children, no family, no legacy, and something more selfish than that. I wanted more time, desperately. When my grandmother passed away at 101, I took over her house. There was no question. She'd always been a little odd in ways I never fully understood. I was her only granddaughter, and she treated me like I was precious, like I was the last of something important. She'd been obsessed with the strange. Bundles of herbs hung drying from her rafters. She burned them at dusk. Sometimes I would glimpse her through a cracked door, muttering in languages I didn't recognize. Charms of feathers, bones, and stones always hung from her neck, clacking softly as she moved. She had a way of looking through you, her gaze heavy as iron, making you feel stripped bare, and above all, there were the books, always unmarked, leather-bound tomes. It didn't seem odd at first, until the day I passed behind her chair while she read. The pages were filled with symbols, jagged and crawling, interspersed with broken Latin and scattered Old English I could barely decipher. Those books never made it back to the shelves. Only one ever resurfaced. I found it in the attic a month after she had passed. The attic smelled of dust and something faintly metallic, like old pennies left too long in the rain. Pale light barely reached the corners where shadows crouched, thick and stubborn. When I lifted the quilt she'd woven herself, a puff of stale air escaped, cold as breath. Beneath it sat a small cedar box, its hinges dark with age. Inside, old papers were bound in cracked leather, the edges yellowed and curling. It smelled of smoke, but not fire, something older. The ink on the pages was darker than black, glistening wet though they were dry. And when I looked too long at the symbols, they writhed, curling like ash in an unseen breeze. On the third page, words I could read emerged. The chord ritual. More followed. It was simple, 10 knots, each tied with intention. Each knot a year of life, stolen from the waiting mouth of death. The price? A small sacrifice. The first knot was cliché. A drop of blood, harmless, but the price climbed. The more you took, the more you had to give. Memories, essence, pieces of yourself. Not long into my doctor visits, I remembered the old book. I reclaimed it. I didn't hesitate. I was dying. The first knot was easy, a drop of blood. The next day, I felt better. Not just better, alive. Strong. The pain in my side faded. The yellow fled from my eyes. I called my doctors. They were shocked. Spontaneous remission, they said. But I knew what I had done. So I kept trying the knots. One a year, always on the same night. Each year, I gave a little more. The second knot, a strand of hair. I plucked the awkward one that never lay flat. It never grew back. The third, a fingernail. It slipped off cleanly, as if the knot itself had loosened it. The fourth, a tooth. Same thing, no pain. I felt invincible. I'd reached 38. The fifth, an important memory. I couldn't recall exactly what grandmother's passing. Something felt hollow. I remember being distraught about it. Then I moved on. The sixth, my reflection. Nobody seemed to notice. Maybe it only affected me. When I looked into mirrors, all I saw was a blurred absence, a ripple in glass. The seventh, my shadow. Strange, yes. but every year past 38 was a gift, even if I wasn't whole. The 8th, a hope, an ambition. This was the moment I knew I wouldn't last beyond the 10th knot. That night, as I tied it, I realized my hopes for the future were gone. I couldn't even imagine a tomorrow. By the 9th knot, I stopped dreaming, or perhaps the dreams weren't mine anymore. Shadows pressed close in sleep. Whispers crawled beneath the surface. When I woke, I could still hear them calling, faint and distant, like voices rising from deep water. And then came the 10th knot. The price wasn't a piece of me. This time, it demanded something I loved. And the only thing I had left was Lily, my cat. She was old, frail, always curling beside me like a warm heartbeat. She had been with me through everything. I tied the 10th knot, whispered her name, and carried her gently to her bed. She didn't wake the next morning, but neither did I die. Not on time, anyway. I thought I had won. I thought I had outwitted death, bought more time, like always, until today. I stood at my bedroom doorway staring down the hallway, and saw him. A man, or something like one, standing still in the shadows. I couldn't see his face, only the weight of his presence pressing down on the air. He wasn't standing in the dark. He was the dark. The shadows bent toward him, siphoning like smoke into his shape. When I moved, he stayed. When I spoke, he gave no answer. And then he lifted a bony finger and pointed slowly, deliberately, down the hall, over my shoulder, at the drawer beside my bed. My heart sank. The cord lay coiled inside. The 10th loop unraveled before my eyes. A meow sounded from downstairs, Lily, and then footsteps, soft barefoot growing closer. An hour later, the 9th knot unraveled. He stepped forward. By the time the 6th knot came undone, I glimpsed myself in the mirror. The reflection was back, but I didn't recognize her. My hair had thinned, my skin bruised with sickly yellows and grays, parts of me flaked, crumbling like old parchment. I was rotting. He was in the doorway now. The 5th knot has just slipped free, and now I remember my memory. My grandmother on her deathbed, frail, sunken into the mattress, pointing a trembling finger toward the corner of the hospital room, her voice hoarse with terror. "Tell him to leave!" Her lips cracked. "He can't have me yet!" There'd been nothing there then, only a patch of shadow thick as ink. I thought I had beaten death, but I hadn't. I only borrowed time, and death, it turns out, never forgets. I only have a few hours left, opposed to the year I thought I had. If you're reading this, will one of you please visit my home and take Lily? Tell her I'm sorry. Give her more love in her final years than I did. I don't want her to spend the rest of her time waiting, watching, worrying the way that I did.